theory on what happened. Victims' relatives were escorted to the place where their loved ones died. Video shows an SUV riddled with bullet holes and filled with toys. Manuel Bojorquez is in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. Manuel, what's next for the family?
Well, good morning. Funerals will be held today for Donna Langford and her 2 children, as well as Ronita Miller and her 4 children, including 8-month-old twins. And while this family grieves, they're also pressing for answers about what prompted this attack.
Look at the bullet holes in Donna's vehicle.
Mexican government officials now believe the killers who opened fire on the families belonged to La Línea, part of the Juarez drug cartel.
They shot down on it from the top. Look at that.
They say the attackers entered the territory of the rival Sinaloa cartel Sunday near La Mora, where the extended LeBaron family lived, all members of a breakaway group once associated with the Mormon Church. Local police have been on high alert ever since the 2 cartels engaged in a gun battle early Monday morning. Mexican authorities believe the gunmen opened fire on the family's 3 SUVs hours later, first mistaking them for cartel members. But family members, including Max LeBaron, say the group was targeted. The question is then, why target this family?
These organizations usually, there's no reason, there's no logical reason behind it other than the fact that they're just terrorist organizations.
They point out that children traveling with 29-year-old Christina Langford Johnson say she raised her arms to show she was not a threat.
She put her baby as far down as she could in the vehicle. She got out of the vehicle, she asked them she tried to identify that there was women and children there, and she got gunned down.
Mexican officials say the first SUV was hit by bullets and exploded around 9 a.m. Monday. 2 hours later, the other 2 Suburbans were ambushed about 11 miles down the road. After that shooting, a relative says 13-year-old Devin Langford hid his siblings in bushes and went for help. About 6 hours later, he arrived in La Mora, 14 miles away, and alerted family members. His uncles were forced to wait for army reinforcements to arrive before they could set out to find the children. This is video of the moment Christina Langford Johnson's baby, 7-month-old Faith, was found alive in the bullet-riddled SUV, 11 hours after the shooting. In total, 8 children were rescued. 3 are still recovering in an Arizona hospital. The Mexican president says he is open to the U.S. working with local authorities in this investigation. Officials here in Mexico say more than 200 bullet casings were found at the crime scene. They say those were manufactured by a U.S.-based gun maker and are commonly used in military-type assault rifles. Gail?
Manny, the more details you hear, the more gut-wrenching it is. Thank you very much for bringing us the latest on that terrible story. For the first time, federal authorities are accusing Saudi Arabia of spying in the U.S. The case involves 2 former Twitter employees who allegedly gained access to thousands of accounts. Jeff Begay reports on what's behind all these allegations.
In custody this morning, Ahmad Abu Ammo. Federal law enforcement sources confirm that he was arrested in Seattle. Ali Al-Zabara, who is a Saudi citizen, is said to have fled the U.S. Investigators believe the 2 were working as assets of the Saudi government, and Al-Zabara spied on upwards of 6,000 Twitter accounts, some of whom were known Saudi critics. The men were paid in cash and jewelry. The criminal complaint says Abu Ammo lied to the FBI about his payments, but received at least $300,000 for his work and tried to sell a watch a Saudi official gave him for at least $20,000. Abu Ammo and Al-Zabara are accused of working with a Saudi official connected to the family of the country's leader, Mohammed bin Salman. The Washington Post reports one of the accounts they allegedly targeted belonged to a dissident who later became close to Jamal Khashoggi, the Saudi critic and Washington Post columnist who was murdered last year. U.S. intelligence believes bin Salman ordered the killing, which he denies. Twitter cooperated with the FBI in this investigation, which we're told has not been reported in Saudi media. In recent years, there has been a debate about the amount of user data that tech companies have and their ability to protect it. This case, again, puts the spotlight on that issue and how governments try to exploit the information.
Makes you wonder if there are others out there, Jeff. Thank you very much. This morning, Turkey's president is accusing the U.S. of not living up to its commitment to move Kurdish forces out of northern Syria, as President Trump had promised. U.S. troops are still in that region, where the recent arrival of Syrian troops backed by Russia is making the area more dangerous. Charlie D'Agata has been covering this story extensively from the region. He's at a U.S. military unit near the Turkey-Syria border.
For most of this morning, we've been following around this U.S. military convoy as they've been visiting oil facilities and oil fields in this region in northern Syria. They were ordered to protect these oil fields by President Trump so they don't fall into the hands of ISIS. And their mission has changed over the past couple of weeks. It was only a few weeks ago that President Trump ordered U.S. troops to withdraw from this region. And that essentially gave the green light for Turkey to invade and fight Syrian Kurdish forces here. Hundreds of thousands of people had to evacuate that area. Hundreds of people have been killed. And there's a lot of criticism here now. The President Trump's order for these troops to now secure oil fields suggests that the U.S. administration cares more about protecting oil fields than they do about protecting civilians. Now, as far as the mission here is concerned, U.S. military officials say their primary operation has not changed, and that is the fight against ISIS. This part, securing the oil fields, is simply part of that mission.
Charlie D'Agata reporting from northern Syria. An arrest has been made in connection with a New Hampshire couple found dead in Texas. Adam Curtis Williams was located in Mexico and taken to Houston last night. He was arrested for felony theft, but not for the murder of the couple, James and Michelle Butler. Meg Oliver is just back from Texas and has been the only network reporter covering this case. Meg, why do officials think Williams may be involved?
Good morning. Well, Anthony, the only key piece of evidence linking him to the murder of James and Michelle Butler was a photo of Williams and a woman taken at the U.S.-Mexico border. That photo showed the 33-year-old Williams behind the wheel of the murdered couple's truck. The arrest warrant accuses him of felony auto theft. Mexican authorities also detained the woman seen sitting next to him, identified as Amanda Nover. They say she was in the country illegally. The Butler's remains were found October 27th in shallow graves on Padre Island, south of Houston. Last year, they went on a dream road trip, living out of their RV. A member of the Butler's family tells CBS News they're relieved Williams has been caught. He was arrested last night in Houston, then driven back to Claiborne County Jail, where he remains this morning. A news conference is scheduled for later this morning, and we're expecting to hear more information. Of course, we're going to be monitoring.
Yeah, right now the details are just for felony theft, but it sure doesn't look good to be driving the vehicle of a couple that's been murdered.
Exactly.
It does not look good.
And buried, we should say.
There's questions about the safety of doing that. I mean, a lot of people rent RVs, make that trip. It is a dream trip for many.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. All right, Meg, thank you very much. A Colorado jury is hearing dramatic testimony in the murder trial of a mom who vanished last Thanksgiving. Ahead, what a witness who is linked to the alleged crime revealed about the victim's final words. But first, it is 7:17. Time to check your local weather.
Hey, good morning. You probably don't need a weatherman to tell you that it's not a very nice morning. If you've looked out the window, stepped out the door, it is wet.
Vein injection in 1980.
Is banking reimagined? What's in your wallet?
Manage their withdrawal symptoms and get them through comfortably so that they can get to the part that matters the most, and that's continued sobriety.
You know what? Here's an idea. Let's ask Markham. That's good. Hey, now.
Incompetent and thinking outside of a short political term.
OK Boomer has become an internet rallying cry since the millennials fed up with the older generation. Swarbrick said some people were upset with her remark, in which she responded, I guess millennials ruined humour. Now to South Africa, where a 5-day victory lap has kicked off for the Rugby World Cup.
Price of the library. Well, the price cuts are going to be basically running through the income statement in the next 2 to 3.
In New York, after going to Game 5 of the World Series at Nationals Park in D.C.
And so what does it mean to have a super fan in chief in the audience when you're playing or coaching? Let's ask legendary football coach and one of the presenters of last night's Patriot Awards, Lou Huff. Coach.
And he's in the world, and that includes the...
You and me.
Come closer and see.
What they really, really want. This year we're honoring Gwen Stefani, Jennifer Aniston, and King. In South Africa. Yeah, we can't find it today.
And the motto of this World Cup.
Turn profitable, even though short term it's going to be a drain. Everyone's doing it, pouring billions into it. Why do you think it'll turn for 3 years for Disney? What's going to turn it around?
To concede. If the votes hold, Bevin would be the only Republican to lose a statewide office in Tuesday's election, despite an endorsement from the president.
So really unpleasant.
Chevrolet. I know a winning team when I see one, and my friends are
For my day morning. So be aware, heading out this morning, we've got some wet roads, a lot of
Showing shredded cheeses and our signature hot sauce.
Get ready for Xavier Riddle in this.
Motor oil for $3.49 a quart.
next time.
The temps are going to keep falling or stabilize in the 30s and 40s. So 52 right now at Union City. By about midday, you'll be in the 40s for sure. Yeah, the hour-by-hour trend. The temps get colder and then kind of stabilize this afternoon with a little sunshine going on. By the way, the weekend actually still looks okay right now. It'll be kind of cool, but not bad. Sunshine, highs in the upper 40s to close to 50 on Saturday, near 60 on Sunday. So not a nice day today. Wet, cold, and windy, but it looks like we're still going to salvage a pretty nice weekend.
Well, the first day was a pretty rough one for the president, Mika. I mean, we were expecting it to be rough on Roger Stone. I was not expecting quite so much focus on the president. I think back to the trial.
Got $15 billion, and that
for us. How about for you?
Oh, I think it was fantastic. I tell you the best thing about it. I think that
away and the Mouse will win.
All right, we will.
Mentions of Trump and the Trump campaign, the phone calls that you just talked about, and even more calls and emails and messages between Roger Stone and the people running that campaign. Manafort, who we just talked about, Steve Bannon, Rick.
Same-day appointments are often available. Start your...
Be nasty out there today, though. You'll be a lot happier if you have your umbrella and some extra layers.
Now this is the.
So yes, you should get the flu shot every year. It's also been shown that people who do get the flu shot every year tend to have a better flu resistance. They tend to be better equipped.
On average, up to 12 pounds.
Those temperatures down to the 40s this afternoon, 30s tonight, feels like numbers in the 20s.
Come on! Hey, wait! I'm gonna get the flag! I got your flag, man!
Reuse needles. Do not take Ozempic if you have a personal or family history of medullary.
So if you have anyone that you're around who's 6 months or younger, they can't get the flu shot. So if you're immune...
Right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck.
Forget about...
Provide the glasses or contacts that work perfectly for you. With state-of-the-art equipment and compassionate care, we can take care of every person and every need. We're happy to introduce our new
Dad, would you mind telling me what on earth you're...
I'm gonna try. Well, everyday lunch come.
Hours, 20 dogs? Where's your belly rubs? After
Storms threatening. WPST Local 6, the Weather Authority.
Tomorrow morning, the service dog giving this veteran a more focused life.
We're all very familiar with you by now. Which $1,000 clue are you going to go for first?
Something's calling me to all in for 1,000.
Oh, Jeopardy humor. We all know Jeopardy.
It was the highest rated live musical on any network in nearly 4 years.
And from one musical to another, so much.
And guess what? He cleaned up. He's going to play again next week as that tournament.
With spying for Saudi Arabia's government.
Plus, only on CBS This Morning, Oprah will be here to reveal her latest book club selection.
We have to be the fierceness, the love that we want to see.
Lift up your arms. Oh, right there.
And our series of More Perfect Union shows a paramedic who makes everyday rescues magical.
All I want to do is be good at my job. And if it means me finding another way to be a better paramedic, which is doing magic tricks for kids, by all means, I'm going to do that.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Can't wait to meet him. Like him already.
Yeah.
Almost
We're
worth a
due.
trip to the hospital. All right, welcome back to CBS This Morning. I'm Tony DeCopel with Gail King and Anthony Mason, and we're going to begin with the woman who was having an affair with a Colorado man accused of killing his fiancée. She is expected back on the stand today after revealing dramatic new details about the alleged crime. Patrick Frazee is on trial for murder. Frazee's fiancée, Kelsey Barrett, was last seen in public last Thanksgiving Day. Her body has not been found, but prosecutors allege Frazee killed her. Crystal Lee.
Crime lab has led. Fortunately, officials say foul play is suspected, but there is a massive and expanding search underway.
A problem for a very long time in Mexico. A few years ago, it seemed to be improving, but recently there's been a dramatic uptick in grisly murders as new drug traffickers fight for position, looking to fill the void left behind by the notorious drug kingpin El Chapo.
In rural Mexico, the cartel carnage has been a way of life for decades. But now it's escalating. Through September, there were already more than 16,000 homicides in Mexico this year alone. That's already more than all of last year.
Part of the reason for the uptick, the U.S. appetite for drugs. Border Patrol agents have seen a huge comeback of meth coming from Mexico, and the cartels are all fighting for a piece of that action.
The country's widespread violence dramatized in the Netflix series Narcos. The State Department has long warned U.S. tourists of the danger, issuing do not travel warnings to several Mexican states, though the main resort towns have been deemed safe. Mexico's war on drugs started in 2006 when the country's president sent in its military to fight the powerful cartels. They'd stepped up from simply smuggling cocaine for Colombian gangs to bloodier, more full-fledged trafficking operations across the U.S. border. Since then, gang-fueled violence has killed more than 200,000 people. More than 40,000 are missing.
Look, you get glimpses of it every day, just like the killing of the three mothers and the children here recently. It's unbelievable how ruthless these cartels are.
Drew Hogan is a former DEA agent who once infiltrated the Sinaloa cartel, which even now controls a large swath of the country. Hogan, as part of a narcotics task force, led the investigation and recapture of El Chapo Guzman in 2014. The infamous drug kingpin escaped again before his dramatic arrest 2 years later. The shootout captured on body camera video.
This is another sophisticated tunnel underneath the safe house of El Chapo, and this is where he and a top lieutenant managed to make it about a half mile in that direction.
But Guzman was eventually extradited to the U.S., where he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Since Guzman's imprisonment, there's been even more violence and more competition from what's known as the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, a ruthless turf war with no end in sight.
I mean, I think we knew the drug cartel violence had gotten bad. I don't think we realized it had gotten that bad, Gabe. What is it about these cartels that makes it so difficult for authorities to crack down on?
Well, one of the concerns is that previous crackdowns have actually splintered these groups into smaller, more ruthless factions. And the current president in Mexico, he has a controversial policy it's known as hugs, not bullets. And he's trying to focus on what he sees as the root causes of this drug problem, such as extreme poverty. But many critics say that's just not enough to deal with these ruthless groups.
Yeah. All right, Gabe, thank you. Coming up, could getting a split divorce from your partner be the solution?
So sad.
Science project.
Thanks, Dad.
Toyota, let's go places.
You're going to want to turn on that car heater this morning. Cold temperatures move.
Algae. It's
in our heartstrings to know that it touches even them.
Well, they're cuddling. I mean, they're whales cuddling. How do you not?
I like that. True.
Cuddle with a whale. Okay. Thank you for bringing it.
Coming up here, Ellen DeGeneres has filed a major new lawsuit, and next on GMA, the exclusive interview with a young woman at the center of an adoption scandal accused of posing as a child and terrorizing her family. She speaks up for the first senator
in both of our state legislatures. So we now have every statewide office, both senators, majorities in our congressional delegation, electoral votes 3 in a row, and both state legislatures. Why did we have such a good night? First, it was a massive repudiation of President Trump, just like in 2017 and 2018. In 2019, Virginia voters said, no way. I've been saying we have a state seal with a victorious woman standing across a deposed tyrant. Our state was born out of opposition to tyranny, and we still hate tyrants. We don't like bullies. We don't like narcissists, and we don't like bigots. And what President Trump presents to us is exactly what we don't like. Second, we're doing really well in the suburbs, and you see that all across the country. You've been talking about it this morning. And third, when Democrats were given the chance, beginning with Mark Warner in 2001 to govern, we showed we could govern well. People trust us to run things in a sensible, practical, but progressive way, and so that's why we've been winning.
Senator Kane, Al Sharpton, what is the Virginia lesson that other states can learn to really do what you were able to do? Because we saw in Kentucky that the governorship was won when he dealt with health care, he dealt with the issues of the state as well as the anti-Trump feeling, but not just majoring on an anti-Trump feeling. What are the lessons that you think people in the Democratic Party nationally or in other states can learn from what happened in Virginia on Tuesday?
Reverend Al, really good question, and you put a good point on it. While the election was a big repudiation of President Trump, our candidates didn't have to spend much time talking about President Trump because everybody knows what they think about this guy. The antipathy to President Trump was a factor in turnout. Our candidates, though, talked about the need to address gun violence, the progress we made with Medicaid expansion and trying to protect it from a Republican rollback. So our candidates really could focus on core Democratic issues, things we've gotten done, but other things like ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment and dealing with gun violence that still need to get done. So the antipathy to Trump is a turnout factor, but our candidates were able to put on the table, here are the issues we care about. And then the second thing is we are now nominating an incredibly diverse array of candidates. You know, I was in Prince William, which is a really diverse county on election night, and the previous chair of that county board had made anti-immigrant policies his priority since 2007. One race after the next was getting called. A Muslim American chairman of the school board, the first African American sheriff in the county. 4 out of the 8 members of the county board of supervisors are African American, 50%. Even though the population of the county is only about 20% African American. So young men and women, diverse candidates, and that creates an energy, and that's been really, really helpful to us.
Good morning, Senator. It's Susan Del Percio.
Hey, Susan.
Congratulations on the wins that you had in Virginia. Now the tough part starts, and that's governance.
Right.
And
yes,
there is just such a small 3 difference between the D's and the R's in the Senate. And you do have a good number of Democrat, I think it's 54 to 43 in the House of Delegates. But governing now takes on a different meaning. And I think we've seen it at the national level in the House where you have different, you go from all the way left to moderate. And we see that now. So what are going to be the biggest challenges in governing with having all 3 legislative branches or 2?
Well, and I have a little bit of experience in this. When I was governor from 06 to 010, we did flip the state Senate from red to blue and then had to deal with, okay, we have a majority that we haven't had in a while. Here are some pitfalls. First, when the Republicans go into minority after having run the houses, they try to trip you up every day. They try to use knowledge of the procedures and rules to embarrass you. So the 2 Democratic majorities have to be really prepped and disciplined. That's number 1. Number 2, there's such a pent-up demand for getting good things done that you can try to do a million things. Forget the sort of left, right, or center. You can just scatter and try to do too many different things, where I think what the leaders and our governor need to do is say, we have a short legislative session every year. What are the 4 or 5 big things we could do, and let's focus our energies on those. I think that discipline and focus, what are the 4 or 5 big things, and then we'll have another 4 or 5 next year if we can get the 4 or 5 done this year. Try to do too much at once is really important.
Hi, Senator. It's Steve Ratner.
Hey, Steve.
Hey. Let's turn to
the brain's fight or flight reactions, often amplified in PTSD patients, which can cause them to have trouble sleeping or become easily irritated and angry. The SGB anesthetic appears to block those nerve impulses between the brain and the body.
And I'm going to inject that.
A handful of veterans hospitals across the country already use SGB. It's also given on a limited basis to civilians, including first responders, survivors of childhood trauma, and assault victims.
This entire time, there's this very, very fine gauze that you were looking through, and it really diminished your experience of being alive.
This woman, who asked us not to use her name, says she spent 35 years reliving a brutal sexual assault by a neighbor. After seeing the 60 Minutes report over the summer, she sought out a doctor in Chicago who was providing SGB treatment. She says it changed her life.
I started grinning and I couldn't quit, and I said, this stuff works.
Her doctor, Eugene Lipov, has treated both military and civilian patients with SGB therapy for more than a dozen years.
If you take your fight and flight and turn it on, and it stays on, that's PTSD. This takes a switch and turns it off.
SGB has been used for decades to treat conditions such as hot flashes, migraines, and other pain. But many PTSD patients still need intensive psychiatric therapy, and no one is calling it a magic bullet.
It gives you another opportunity to change your life, and the more you work with it, the more successful you'll be.
Dr. Mulvaney told us he's proud to have made a difference as a veteran and as a healer.
What does it mean to you as a retired Navy SEAL?
I've helped a lot of my SEAL brothers, hundreds of them, but it's not as parochial as that. I'm just as glad to be able to help Marines or firefighters or people that were abused as children.
SGB is expected to help many people and their families who suffer from the ripple effects of PTSD. The next study is still awaiting funding, but is expected to be larger and last for 1 year with a longer follow-up plan. The cost of this procedure is at least $1,500 for veterans and civilians.
It's hard to look at that needle go in the neck because it goes to the arm or your butt.
But the testimony of that woman is extraordinary.
Yeah, but if it works, that's all that matters. What is it about this treatment that gives it so much potential?
You know, when we interviewed Dr. Mulvaney, he was in tears, basically talking about how profound the suffering is of these patients and how you can turn their life around potentially with a 15-minute procedure. People who told him, I don't know what I'm going to do. I might kill myself if this doesn't work. I've lost all hope. So it's like a reboot of the brain, particularly in a condition where medications and therapy really aren't so effective.
They happen so quickly. Though.
Yeah, not a magic bullet, but seemed pretty magic to me. Sarah, thank
really
you very
great
much.
stuff.
Yeah,
Thank
indeed.
you, Sarah.
Vlad Duthier is looking at the stories you'll be talking about today. Vlad, what do you got?
Hey, Tony, what's happening? So, Ellen DeGeneres and Sandra Bullock, they are joining forces to go after pop-up websites ahead. Why they are suing 100 John Does.
Watch out, John Doe. You're going to be in court soon. Thank you, Vlad. We'll see you in a few minutes. But first, 7:44. Time to check your local weather.
Hey, good Thursday morning. Not that it is a nice morning. Weather-wise, it is cold, it is wet, it is windy outside, and it's not going to get any warmer.
That is a leap of victory for people that have suffered in post-traumatic syndrome stuff towards them being able to at least treat the problem a little bit better than what they did 25, 30, 40, 50 years ago. So, 2 thumbs up to modern medicine in that degree. It's really sad what's going on pertaining to a government that puts so much trust in the Saudi government, knowing that the Saudi government was capable of doing anything. And the death of the reporter, and now them capturing some spies here in America, only helps to verify the very allegations that I've been making all along, which I don't think are allegations, I think are truths, that those people are the very people that masterminded 9/11. Why our government will not release certain records has to be because they, once more, are protecting the guilty rather than protecting the innocent in regards to that situation over in the Saudi kingdom. They are evil. They are demonic. They're probably one of the most wickedest entities upon the planet. And the reason why that we haven't already done attack them in such of a degree is because old politicians in old administrations got too far in depth with partnering up with them, and to cut off the tides right now could be, it could have a whiplash effect upon to not only us but upon to our allies. So you talk about a delicate walk to have to, a tight line walk to have to walk, pertaining to how come this has occurred, going all the way back to old man Bush's and Reagan's administration. It just helps to verify all the things that I've been saying about those demonic sorcery type people all along. One last final thing that I want to make mention of, whenever it talks about the dragon in the book of Revelations, and it talks about the two witnesses, and it talks about the beast that will rise out of the ocean. The beast is paraphrasing towards the two witnesses. The two witnesses talks about two different belief systems. One belief system believes in the Muslim praying to Muhammad or Allah in that regard, that has now risen up out of that area. The other witness is, of course, the witness of the Lord Jesus Christ. Those that believe in the teachings of Christ towards believing in a hereafter after this life. The dragon paraphrased it towards it being the old system, the old world. The planet, in essence, is how that John the Revelator seen in his visions that the dragon basically tried to consume or eliminate or destroy the male child that was to rule all the nations. President Trump last night mentioned down in Louisiana that he was the President of the United States of America, that he was not the President of the world. I commend his statement pertaining to him not being the President of the world, and thank God he's not the President of the world, pertaining to some of the craziest things that he has said and done in his presidency. He has trampled, made people mad, insulted people, violated our interest, and even blackmailed or tried to cause extortion to various allies pertaining to the Ukrainians. Thank God he's not the President of the world. It's hard enough to deal with him just being the President of the United States of America, much less if he was the President of the world. But I wanted to make reference to those things coming out of Revelations as we dig deeper into studying Revelations and understanding that it all corresponds with the last chapter, actually the last 2 chapters of Daniel, where different things will occur pertaining to the rise of the beast, the 2 witnesses, the end time biblical Bible prophecy. Once more, I want to thank my viewers for allowing me to share this morning towards doing some news surfing. I hope I didn't catch too much of other miscellaneous information that to me is not even worthwhile of talking about or discussing. The deal with the medication with our veterans, I like that. That was really cool, and watching how that they go into the neck and use that type of therapy in regard to not only veterans but people who has been involved in horrible situations, especially those who have been traumatized at a young age. 2 thumbs up to modern medication in today's society in the 21st century towards what that they have been able to achieve. Once more, I want to thank my viewers, and good luck to all of us, and shalom.